Night. I came home from a double shift at the hospital. I wasn't expecting roses. I wasn't expecting dinner on the table or my husband waiting at the door. After 12 years of marriage to a man who hadn't held a steady job in 3, I had stopped expecting much of anything. But I wasn't expecting this. The house was warm. I could smell garlic bread and something rich, pasta, maybe a roast. I could hear laughter from the kitchen. Not just my husband's low chuckle, but a woman's voice, bright and loud, and the shrieking giggles of small children. And underneath all of it, so quiet I almost missed it, a sound that stopped my heart cold. My daughter was crying, not in the kitchen, not at the table where the laughter was coming from. She was crying from somewhere down the hall, thin and muffled, like she'd been crying for a long time and had already given up on anyone coming. I dropped my bag on the floor and walked past the kitchen without stopping. My husband called my name. I didn't answer. I followed the sound to the end of the hallway, to the small storage room we use for holiday boxes and old coats, and I opened the door. My daughter was sitting on the floor in the dark, wrapped in a coat that was 2 sizes too small, holding her stuffed rabbit against her chest. She was 6 years old. She looked up at me with red eyes and said, very quietly, "Mommy, you came home." I sat down on the floor right there with her. I didn't go back to the kitchen. I didn't say a word to my husband. I just held her until she stopped shaking, and while I held her, something in me went very, very still. Her name is Cora. She is the best thing I have ever done. And I had left her home with a man I thought I could trust. My name is Nadia. I'm 31 years old. I'm a registered nurse at a regional hospital in Charlotte, North Carolina, and for the past 3 years I have been the only person in my household with a paycheck. My husband, I'll call him Marcus, was laid off from his project management job when Cora was 3, and what started as a temporary gap became something permanent and unspoken. He applied for things, sometimes. He took calls, occasionally, but mostly he was home, and I told myself that was fine, that we were making it work, that plenty of families operated this way. What I didn't know, what I was too tired and too busy and too trusting to look closely enough to see, was what he was doing with the time. Marcus has an older sister named Renee. She is 38, twice divorced, and has 2 boys, 7 and 9, who she has been raising mostly alone since her second marriage fell apart 2 years ago. I have always felt sorry for Renee. That is the honest truth. She had a harder life than most. And when Marcus asked if we could help her out sometimes, watch the boys for a weekend, loan her some money here and there, I said yes, because that's what family does. I said yes so many times. I said yes so many times. I said yes to the boys coming for a week in the summer. I said yes when Marcus suggested Renee join us for Thanksgiving because she had nowhere else to go. I said yes when he asked if she could stay in our guest room for just 2 weeks while her apartment situation sorted itself out. That was 8 months before the night I found Cora in the storage room. Renee was still in my guest room. And I was still saying yes, because by that point I had stopped looking closely enough to know what I was saying yes to. Here's what I didn't see, because I was working 50-hour weeks and coming home too exhausted to notice the temperature of her room. I didn't see that Renee's boys had taken over the living room, the backyard, the television, and most of the pantry. I didn't see that Cora had been quietly pushed to the edges of her own home, her art supplies moved to make room for the boys' video games, her spot at the kitchen table increasingly occupied by someone else, her voice increasingly drowned out by louder, older, more demanding presences. I didn't see that my husband was cooking Renee's boys their favorite meals, while Cora ate cereal for dinner. I didn't see that when Cora asked Marcus for help with her homework one evening. He told her to wait and then spent the next 2 hours watching a movie with his nephews, and Cora eventually went to her room and cried herself to sleep. I didn't see any of it, because I was at the hospital and I trusted the person I had left in charge. The night I found her in the storage room, Marcus came down the hall a few minutes after I sat down with Cora. He leaned in the doorway with a look on his face that I can only describe as mildly inconvenienced. He said the boys had wanted to play a game and Cora had been in the way. He said she'd been fine. He said I was overreacting. I looked at my daughter's red eyes and her too small coat. And I looked at my husband and I did not say a single word. I put Cora to bed that night with her rabbit and her nightlight, and I sat on the edge of her mattress until she fell asleep. Then I went to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water and stood at the counter for a long time. I didn't fight with Marcus that night. I didn't fight with him at all. Instead, I started paying attention. What I found over the next 3 weeks changed everything I thought I knew about my life. The first thing I did was look at our bank accounts. Marcus had access to our joint checking account, the one where my direct deposit landed every 2 weeks. I had not looked at it carefully in over a year. I had been too tired and the bills were always paid, so I assumed things were fine. They were not fine. Over 18 months, Marcus had made a series of transfers, never large enough to trigger any alert I had set up, always just under $1,000, into an account I didn't recognize. I went back through every statement I could access. The total came to just over $41,000. I sat with that number for a long time. I am a nurse. I know how to stay calm when everything in me wants to fall apart. I have held that composure at bedsides, in hallways, in conversations no one wants to have. I held it now. I closed the laptop and I went to work the next morning, and I called a family law attorney from the parking garage on my lunch break. Her name is Patricia Owens, and she is the best decision I have made in a long time. Patricia told me 3 things in our first meeting. First, do not confront Marcus. Do not tell him what I know or what I suspect. Do not give him any reason to move money, change accounts, or get his own legal counsel before I was ready. Second, document everything. Keep records of Cora's situation, dates, incidents, what she told me, her emotional state. Third, do not change my behavior at home. Act normal. Give nothing away. I followed every word of that advice. Every single word. It was one of the hardest things I have ever done, to come home every evening and eat dinner at that table and watch Renee settle into my couch like she owned it, and watch Marcus laugh at something she said and feel what I was feeling and show nothing, but I did it. For 6 weeks, I did it. During those 6 weeks, I also learned other things. I learned that Renee was not paying any rent or contributing to groceries, which I had vaguely known. But I learned also that Marcus had been paying her car insurance for the past 4 months from our joint account. Without telling me, I learned that the boys' school supplies, winter coats, and a new gaming console had all been purchased with our money, also without telling me. I learned from Cora, slowly, gently, over several evenings of quiet conversation, that this had been going on for most of the 8 months Renee had been in our house. That Cora had been told to be patient and share and not be selfish, that she had been excluded from movie nights because the boys wanted something she didn't, that she had been moved out of her own playroom because it was easier for the boys to have a dedicated space. She was 6 years old. She had been 6 years old this entire time, trying to understand why she kept being pushed aside in her own home, trying to decide if she was the problem. When Cora told me that, I had to excuse myself to the bathroom. I turned on the faucet and I stood there for a few minutes. Then I dried my face and went back and kept listening, because she needed me to hear all of it. I heard all of it. By the time Patricia told me we were ready to move, I had documentation of every transaction I had identified, a log of 17 specific incidents involving Cora's treatment in the home, and a very clear picture of what my marriage had actually become. I also had a plan. On a Thursday evening in March, when Marcus told me he was taking Renee and the boys to dinner to celebrate her new part-time job, I had a moving company at the house within 45 minutes. I had arranged this in advance. 2 women from my hospital, my closest friends, people I trusted completely, came with me. We packed Cora's room first. Everything she loved, everything familiar. Her rabbit, her books, her drawings from kindergarten taped to the wall. We packed carefully and we packed fast, and when we were done, Cora's room looked like Cora had never been there. Then I packed what I needed. Not everything. Patricia had advised me on what to take and what to leave. I followed her list exactly. I had already signed a lease on a 2-bedroom apartment 6 days earlier, under my name alone, using my own salary account, a separate account Marcus did not have access to, One I had opened years ago and simply never closed. A lucky accident that became a lifeline. When Marcus came home that night, Cora and I were already gone. He called 17 times between 10 p.m. and midnight. I did not answer. I had Patricia's contact information in my phone, and I texted Marcus only this: all communication through my attorney from this point forward. Her number is below. He showed up at my hospital the next morning. I had already told the front desk and my charge nurse. Security walked him out. He was not calm about it. He called my mother. He called my two closest friends, both of whom had helped me move and who told him nothing. He sent long messages, first angry, then apologetic, then angry again. I read them once, so I could pass them to Patricia if anything in them was relevant. Mostly they were not. What they told me, reading between the lines, was that Marcus had not expected this. He had expected, I think, what people usually expect when they've been getting away with something for a long time, that it would continue, that the other person would accommodate, would adjust, would find a way to absorb the situation rather than dismantle it. He did not know me as well as he thought he did. The divorce filing was straightforward on the surface: irreconcilable differences, equitable distribution of assets, primary custody of Cora to me. But the financial documentation complicated things for Marcus quickly. Patricia filed for full accounting of marital assets and subpoenas for 3 years of bank records. When the $41,000 in transfers surfaced in the formal discovery process, Marcus's attorney had a problem to solve. Marcus claimed the money had been loans to Renee, intended to be repaid. He had no documentation for this. No promissory notes, no written agreements, nothing. Renee, when contacted by my attorney, said she understood them to be gifts. So Marcus had transferred over $40,000 from our joint marital account over 18 months, unilaterally, without my knowledge or consent. And his only explanation produced a direct contradiction from the person who received the money. The judge was not charmed by this. In the meantime, I had filed a formal complaint with family court regarding Cora's living situation during Marcus's visitation requests. I had my log of incidents. I had Cora's own statements, taken carefully and appropriately by a child therapist Patricia referred me to. The therapist's assessment documented significant anxiety, a pattern of feeling excluded and unwanted in her home environment, and a meaningful improvement in Cora's emotional state within 3 weeks of moving into the new apartment. Marcus's request for overnight visitation was denied, pending a guardian ad litem evaluation. He received supervised daytime visits twice a week. Cora, the first Saturday in our new apartment, asked if she could put her drawings on the refrigerator. I said yes. She stood there for 20 minutes arranging them, very seriously, in exactly the order she wanted. Then she stepped back and looked at them and smiled. That image lives in me now. The financial hearing was in late May. Marcus's attorney attempted to argue that the transfers represented informal family support that any reasonable spouse would have authorized if asked, and that my refusal to discuss finances with him was the true source of marital breakdown. Patricia let him finish. Then she submitted 3 years of our joint account statements annotated with every undisclosed transfer, a copy of Marcus's tax return showing 0 employment income for 31 months, documentation of household expenses including Renee's car insurance and the gaming console and the winter coats, and a simple calculation. Over the course of our marriage, I had contributed 94% of all household income. She also submitted Marcus's own text messages, the ones he had sent to my phone in the weeks after I left, in which he referenced the transfers to Renee as helping her out, and said verbatim that he hadn't mentioned them because he knew I would make it a whole thing. He knew. He had made a decision, consistently, over 18 months, to move our money without telling me because he anticipated I would object. That is not an informal family loan. That is not a miscommunication. That is a choice. The judge ordered full restitution of the transferred funds to the marital estate prior to division. Marcus did not have $41,000 liquid. His attorney requested a payment schedule. Patricia agreed to structured repayment terms with interest. Primary physical custody of Cora was awarded to me. Marcus received regular unsupervised visitation once the guardian ad litem report came back. It took 3 months, and it was not flattering to him. But it did not recommend termination of his parental rights, which I had not sought. I wanted Cora to have a father. I wanted him to do better by her than he had done. That is still what I want. The marital home was sold. After the mortgage and the restitution calculation, there was enough equity for each of us to move forward separately. Not richly, but honestly. Renee moved out of the house before it sold. I don't know where she went. I made my peace with not knowing. What I want to tell you, the thing I keep coming back to, is about the storage room. After the settlement was final, I went back to that house one last time to do the final walkthrough before closing. Marcus wasn't there. The house was empty, which made it strange and smaller than I remembered. I walked through every room, and then I walked to the end of the hallway and I opened the door to the storage room. It was just a room. Concrete floor, metal shelving on one wall, a bare light bulb, nothing left in it. But I stood there for a minute because that is where Cora had been sitting when I came home. That is where she had looked up at me with red eyes and said, "Mommy, you came home." She had been waiting. Even then, even after however long she'd been in that room, she had believed I would come. I am trying every day to deserve that. Our apartment has 2 bedrooms and a small balcony where we keep a pot of basil and a pot of marigolds because Cora chose them at the garden center and I said yes. There's a park 3 blocks away. Her new school is good. Her teacher told me last month that she is confident, engaged, one of the first kids to raise her hand. She sleeps well now. That is not a small thing. I work the same long shifts I always have. I come home tired in the way that working people come home tired, and I sit on the floor with my daughter and we do her homework, and we eat dinner at a table that is the right size for exactly 2 people, and sometimes she climbs into my lap even though she is 6 and technically too old for that. And I let her because she is not too old for that, and because I am her mother and I came home. That is the whole story. I came home and I looked, and I did not look away from what I saw. And then I moved through it the way you move through anything hard, carefully, one step at a time, with good people beside me and my daughter's hand in mine. If you are listening to this and something in it sounds familiar, a child who has gone quiet, money that doesn't add up, a home that doesn't feel like yours anymore, I am not telling you what to do. I'm only telling you what I did. I stopped saying yes to everything. I started paying attention. I found one person I could trust completely, and I listened to her. I didn't make a single dramatic gesture. I just followed the steps, one at a time, and I protected my daughter, and I got out. You are allowed to do that. You are allowed to stop accommodating what is hurting you. You are allowed to take your child and your documents and your dignity and go. The marigolds are blooming on the balcony. Cora waters them every morning before school. She is very serious about it. I want you to know things can be okay again. Not perfect. I'm not going to tell you it was easy or that I don't still wake up sometimes with that sick feeling in my stomach, the one that comes from 18 months of not looking closely enough. That feeling is mine to carry, and I carry it. But we are okay. We are more than okay. And she waters the marigolds every single morning without being asked because they are hers and she tends to what is hers. So do I now. So do I.